He was a name that became an ism. Senator Joseph McCarthy's political repression wasn't built on law, but on a currency of fear. His power didn't end with a legislative defeat nor a loss of vote. It ended when the spectacle of his intimidation finally and publicly curdled into farce. The American political establishment, and more importantly, the Irish American public, saw him for what he really was: a predator. What we've seen what happens when this same pattern plays out behind the drapes of several Irish institutions. We've also seen what happens when the Irish system partners with the American one to subjugate blackness as if it were synonymous with immorality. We've seen this happen in Washington, in Dublin, and now in Belfast. We've seen it happen to you and to me. Student, critic, academic, we've seen this with no mercy. But what if, and we are reposing trust on if, there was mercy? What if the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission stood up to its allies, just as I did mine? Not on a crowded street with placards and bullhorns and humanitarian colored flags, of course, but in a public forum. This isn't a hypothetical, there is an existing mechanism for this. Several countries have done it, such as the United States and this one. What it's called is a national inquiry, and tonight we investigate why it's crucial and the missing piece in confronting those involved in violating my human rights. And if you are listening attentively, why it's important for protecting the human rights of someone you know. I'm Kiana Canada, and this is Mimicking McCarthyism, an examination of an obstruction of justice, a series of human rights violations in Belfast, and whether a national inquiry is in order. So, what is a national inquiry? In the lexicon of human rights, it's a powerful formal investigation launched by a national human rights institution. Its mandate is to dissect a systemic human rights problem, such as transnational repression. Transnational repression is a pattern woven into the fabric of institutions and practices. Crucially, the public inquiry process is not a closed door bureaucratic process. In other words, the general public is not just an observer, they are active participants. It is also a multidisciplinary approach within the National Human Rights Institution. We're not just talking about solicitors or lawyers, we're talking about a full scale inquiry that mobilizes researchers to map the terrain, investigators to uncover the facts, educators to inform the public, and policy experts to craft viable solutions. And why this is a key distinguishing factor. There is a deep forensic investigation, and much of it is going to be conducted, to reiterate, in a public forum. Victims like you and I, we should be permitted to provide our testimony directly, and those should be permitted to speak who have participated in our victimization. You see, it shines a light on a process that typically thrives in secrecy. So, why is the public inquiry the right tool for transnational repression, despite the grounds that I've just argued? Well, first, a national inquiry is uniquely equipped to address systemic violations. It connects the dots. My own case of transnational repression isn't just a poignant data point. It's one piece of evidence in a larger state crime pattern where the investigation is inadequate. Governments have to set up a new one, an independent and impartial inquiry. An inquiry can gather dozens of testimonies, building an irrefutable case that is not a series of unfortunate events, but a structured campaign. Second, it allows the Commission to conduct a top to bottom audit of Northern Ireland's legal and political landscape. Which laws are full of loopholes? Which organizations are failing to protect those in Belfast? An inquiry doesn't just identify the problem, it provides a blueprint for a permanent fix, ensuring the issue is addressed once and for all. But from a radical victimology perspective, the most compelling reason is it breaks the cycle of what we call repeat victimization. The most vulnerable in any society, those harmed for being Black or having a checkered past or for complaining too much about their victimization, are often ensnared by the trap of incredulity. Black Americans are victims of widespread, systematic, and sometimes systemic discrimination. And a national inquiry can help us. Without it, the Commission and, by extension, Northern Irish society will face transnational repression again and again. It will not simply just go away. We haven't seen it gone away in other countries. So let's talk about the legal gravity. A national inquiry is reserved, to reiterate, for the most serious of situations like transnational repression. This case squarely involves violations of Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, the right to be free from inhuman and degrading treatment. Being debased by intelligence agencies and the government is the very essence of what degrading treatment means. A national inquiry is a response to this, and not only is it a response, but it is the proportionate response to state crime in Northern Ireland. Further, there is a broad consensus that transnational repression is not only unlawful, but it's dangerous and destructive. It is a tactic that does not just violate human rights, it sends a chilling message to an entire diaspora, to people with dark skin, that their rights are worthless, seeking to create a ripple effect of fear through our families and our friends. But a national inquiry can stop it. And let's be frank, there is a media strategy. Experts in human rights advocacy have long acknowledged that a national inquiry's capacity to attract media and public attention is not a side effect, it's a core function. Human rights experts also acknowledge that without that spotlight, without front page headlines and primetime news segments, it is impossible to build the necessary community support to end political repression. And without public pressure, the political repression will continue and it will be difficult to enact change. Any organization that feels a national inquiry is inappropriate in this particular situation is likely aiding and abetting the perpetrators in their illegal practices. And that's an important thing to think about. Finally, what we do here is we arrive at the most profound element of the inquiry, the right to truth. You see, the UN updated principles on impunity establishes an inalienable right to truth, the duty to remember, the, the victim's right to know, and guarantees to give effect to the right to know. This is not a privilege, it is a fundamental right. To be sure, the European Court of Human Rights has stressed repeatedly that the right to know what happened is vital, not just for victims, but for society as a whole. In my particular case, at Queen's University Belfast, there is a lingering question. In all of my classes, I notified my professors, my cohorts, and external actors that I was being subjected to transnational repression. I made it a matter of public record. Then, state agencies attacked my right to education. So, if something were to happen to me, if I were unalived after seeking this inquiry, students at the university, professors, and others would know that the state was involved. They would know that I did not take my own life because I never would. This is why you shouldn't believe the state and their lies. And you should believe that the state may have been involved. You should immediately suspect their involvement and question whether the very institutions meant to protect me were complicit. To reiterate, you also have a right to know. A national inquiry in Belfast led by the Commission is the embodiment of the UN principles on reparations. It is how a victim obtains satisfaction through, and I quote, verification of the facts and full public disclosure of the truth, end quote. The intimidation of Joseph McCarthy ended when the public refused to be intimidated any longer by his offices. His power was a phantom, sustained only by collective acquiescence. The same can happen here. We have a mechanism. We have a right. We have a need to know. This is not just one case. It's about a soul of a society that claims to value human rights. It's about whether we allow McCarthyism to win in Belfast. And so the call to action begins now. Soon, I will be publicly posting a redacted version of a petition signed by multiple students and staff at Queen's University calling directly on the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission to launch this national inquiry, and how those with political power persuaded, manipulated, and intimidated some of those witnesses afterwards. Read it. Understand that this is not a solitary voice, but a chorus demanding truth. This is the moment for Northern Ireland to choose. Will it be a place where history repeats itself? Or will it stand up to the toxic officials with power? Thank you for watching Mimicking McCarthyism. We'll see you tomorrow.